The moment a quiet signing turns into a loud message, you know something bigger is happening behind the scenes. Because right now, there's a growing tension surrounding the Cleveland Browns, and it all seems to circle back to one name, Shedeur Sanders. At first glance, bringing in Tylan Wallace doesn't look like a headline move. No massive contract, no breaking news frenzy, just another receiver added to the roster. But insiders, and even fans watching closely, are starting to connect the dots. Because this doesn't feel like a simple depth signing, it feels like a warning. And not everyone in that locker room is comfortable right now. There's been a wave of chatter online, with fans and analysts questioning what's really going on inside that wide receiver room. Some are pointing to inconsistency. Others are hinting at deeper chemistry issues. And then there are those more explosive rumors, suggesting that not everyone has been fully aligned with Shedeur's rise as the centerpiece of the offense. Names have been pulled into the conversation too, including Jerry Jeudy. Now, to be clear, nothing has been officially confirmed, but the buzz is getting louder by the day. People are noticing moments, missed connections, off-timing routes, visible frustration on the field, and asking the same question: is this just growing pains or something more? Because if there's one thing that's becoming obvious, it's this: the Browns are done playing it safe. Behind closed doors, changes are happening, fast. There's a shift in mindset, a shift in leadership, and most importantly, a shift in priority. Everything now appears to be revolving around one goal: making sure Shedeur Sanders has everything he needs to succeed. And if that means reshaping the roster, so be it. If that means bringing in players who already understand the system, players who can execute without hesitation, players who won't disrupt the rhythm, then the front office won't hesitate. That's why this move matters more than it looks. Because Tylan Wallace isn't just another receiver. He's fast, he's reliable, he does the small things right, and more importantly, he's a player that can be trusted when it counts. And trust, right now, might be the most valuable currency in that entire locker room. If you love real talk and fearless NFL breakdowns, hit subscribe and join Coach Speaks. But here, where it gets even more interesting, this might only be the beginning. There are already whispers about bigger moves on the horizon, potential trades, big-name targets, even draft decisions that could completely reshape the offense. And if those moves actually happen, some familiar faces might not be around much longer. Which raises the real question nobody wants to answer yet. Is this just a routine roster upgrade? Or is this the start of a full-blown takeover, where anyone not aligned with Shedeur Sanders gets left behind? Because what happens next could change everything. It didn't feel like a headline move. No dramatic announcement. No breaking news alert lighting up every screen. Just a quiet update that most casual fans might have scrolled past without a second thought. The Cleveland Browns had signed Tylan Wallace. On the surface, it looked routine, a depth piece, a special teams contributor, maybe a rotational receiver at best. But inside that locker room, it hit completely different. Because the players in that wide receiver room understood something that most people on the outside didn't. This wasn't just about adding another name to the roster. This was about sending a message, and not a subtle one either. It was loud. It was direct. And it had people paying attention real fast. See, when a team brings in a player like Tylan Wallace, especially at this stage, it's rarely random. This isn't a rebuilding team just throwing darts. This is a front office making calculated decisions that reflect what they really think about the current roster. And what they think is that something isn't working. You don't go out and grab a receiver known for effort, reliability, and special teams impact unless you feel like those exact qualities are missing somewhere inside your own building. You don't bring in someone trusted by the coaching system unless trust has quietly become an issue. And once that realization hits the locker room, everything changes. Because now, it's not just about competing against defenses on Sundays. It's about competing against the guy who just walked in the door. And that's where the tension starts to build. Reports and fan discussions started picking up almost immediately. People began asking questions. Why this move? Why now? What does this say about the guys already on the roster? And more importantly, who does this affect the most? Because let's be real, when a new receiver is added, it doesn't impact everyone equally. Some players feel it more than others. Some roles become uncertain. Some snap counts start to look a little less guaranteed. And suddenly, what used to feel secure doesn't anymore. That's when the pressure creeps in. You start to see it in small ways first. Practice reps get a little more intense. Conversations get shorter. Body language changes. Guys who were comfortable just weeks ago are now looking over their shoulder, wondering where they stand. Because in the NFL, it doesn't take a big move to shake things up. Sometimes, all it takes is the right move. And this felt like one of those. Now here, where things get even more interesting. Tylan Wallace isn't coming in as some unknown gamble. He's not a raw project the team hopes might develop someday. He's already shown what he can do, especially in high-pressure moments. He's fast, explosive, the kind of player who can flip field position in a single play, and on special teams, that's where he becomes even more valuable. Because let's not forget what the Browns dealt with last season. Every time the ball went up on a punt, there was hesitation, uncertainty, fans holding their breath, hoping nothing went wrong. It wasn't just about field position, it was about trust. And too often, that trust wasn't there. That kind of instability doesn't just stay on special teams either. It bleeds into everything. It affects momentum. It changes how aggressively a team plays. It forces the offense to compensate for mistakes that shouldn't even be happening. So when the front office made this move, it wasn't just about adding speed. It was about fixing something that had quietly become a liability. And players notice that. They notice when the team brings in someone who can do your job, but cleaner, more consistent, more dependable. That's when things start to feel real. Because now, it's not about potential anymore. It's about execution. And that brings us to the bigger picture. This move doesn't exist in isolation. It connects directly to the direction the team is heading, and more specifically, who they're building around. Because everything right now seems to point toward one central focus: Shedeur Sanders. His development, his comfort, his success. That's the priority. And when a team locks into that kind of vision, every roster decision starts to reflect it. Every addition, every cut, every snap distribution, it all ties back to one question. Does this help our quarterback thrive? If the answer is yes, you stay. If the answer is no, things get complicated. And that's where the pressure inside, the receiver room, starts to intensify. Because suddenly, it's not just about being talented. It's about being reliable for him. Running the right route at the right time. Being exactly where you're supposed to be. No hesitation, no confusion, no wasted plays. Anything less. It stands out. And when it stands out, it gets noticed. Not just by coaches, but by the front office too. So when Tylan Wallace walks in, he's not just competing for snaps. He's representing a standard. A standard that says, we need players we can trust every single play. That's what makes this move different. That's what makes it unsettling. Because for some guys, this isn't just another teammate joining the roster. It's a direct challenge. A signal that what they've been doing might not be enough. And when that realization hits, reactions start to vary. Some players rise to it, they sharpen up, lock in, treat every rep like it's make or break. Others, they start to feel the weight. Because deep down, they know exactly what this means. This isn't just competition. This is evaluation. And the timing of it all. That's what really fuels the tension. Because this move comes at a point where expectations are already high. The offense is being reshaped. The system is evolving. and the margin for error is getting smaller by the day. There's no room for inconsistency anymore. No room for distractions. No room for players who can't keep up with the pace of what this team is trying to build. So when a player like Wallace gets added into that environment, it doesn't just raise the level of competition. It raises the stakes. Now every dropped pass feels bigger. Every missed assignment gets magnified. Every moment of hesitation becomes harder to ignore. And in a league where careers can shift overnight, that's enough to make anyone uneasy. But here's the part that really changes everything. This move. It might just be the first domino. Because once a team starts making decisions like this, decisions focused on trust, execution, and alignment, it rarely stops at just one player. It becomes a pattern. And when that pattern starts to form, you can almost feel what's coming next. Because if this signing was the warning, then the next move might be the statement. But the signing wasn't what really had people talking. It was everything happening around it. Because almost immediately, a different kind of conversation started gaining traction online. Not about depth charts or snap counts, but about something far more unpredictable: locker room tension. Fans began noticing small things, subtle moments during games, body language on the sidelines, missed connections that didn't quite make sense, and before long, speculation started to spread. A lot of it centered around Shedeur Sanders. As his role continued to grow, so did the expectations, and not everyone, at least according to online chatter, seemed fully aligned with that shift. Some reports claimed there were frustrations building behind the scenes. Others suggested that certain players weren't exactly embracing the new direction of the offense. And then one name started popping up more than others: Jerry Jeudy. Now, to be clear, there's no confirmed evidence that Jeudy or anyone else was intentionally causing problems. But that didn't stop the internet from connecting dots. Missed routes, off-timing throws, visible frustration during plays. Fans began building their own narratives around what they were seeing. Rumors suggested there may have been miscommunication on key plays, that routes weren't always being run as designed, that the rhythm of the offense felt off. And when an offense struggles like that, especially with a young quarterback trying to establish control, every small issue starts to feel bigger than it is. Some fans even speculated that the pressure of shifting the offense toward Shedeur may have created internal friction. After all, when a team starts clearly building around one player, it can change dynamics fast. Roles evolve, opportunities shift, and not everyone adjusts the same way. Again, none of this is confirmed. But in today's game, perception can be just as powerful as reality. And right now, the perception is that something hasn't been completely right inside that receiver room. Because when everything is clicking, you don't see that kind of inconsistency. You don't feel that kind of tension watching from the outside. The timing is sharper. The energy is different. The trust is obvious. That hasn't always been the case here. If you love real talk and fearless NFL breakdowns, hit subscribe and join Coach Speaks. And that's exactly why the front office's recent moves are being looked at so closely. Because when you combine those rumors, whether true or not, with a sudden push to bring in new, reliable pieces like Tylan Wallace, it starts to feel less like coincidence. It starts to feel like a response, a reaction to something we're only seeing pieces of. And whether those rumors are exaggerated or not, they've already done one thing for sure. They've turned up the pressure. Because now, every mistake is under a microscope. Every miscommunication gets questioned. Every interaction is analyzed. And in an environment like that, even the smallest cracks can start to look like major problems. But what happened next? That's when things stopped being speculation and started becoming action. Then came the moment that quietly changed the entire direction of the team. No dramatic announcement, no viral headline, but inside the building, everything shifted the second Todd Monken stepped in and took control of the offense. Because this wasn't just a new voice calling plays. It was a complete reset. From day one, the message was clear. This offense was no longer going to operate in uncertainty. No more miscommunication. No more wasted reps. No more gray areas where players could freelance or fall out of sync without consequences. Every detail suddenly mattered. Routes had to be sharp. Timing had to be precise. Execution had to be consistent. And if it was, you weren't going to stay on the field. That kind of shift doesn't take long to ripple through a locker room. Players feel it immediately. Meetings get tighter. Practices get more intense. And the margin for error shrinks overnight. But the biggest change wasn't just the discipline. It was the direction. Because under Monken, everything began to clearly revolve around one player, Shedeur Sanders. Not in a subtle way either. It was direct. The offense was being shaped to maximize his strengths. The tempo, the structure, the decision-making, all of it designed to give him control, confidence, and clarity on every snap. And that changes everything for everyone else. Because when a quarterback becomes the clear centerpiece, every other role becomes secondary. Receivers aren't just running routes anymore. They're responsible for being exactly where the quarterback expects them to be, every single time. There's no room for guessing. No room for hesitation. No room for ego. And if there was any lingering tension or misalignment before, this system exposed it instantly. Players who were even slightly off in timing or effort stood out right away. Miscommunications that might have gone unnoticed before suddenly became glaring issues. And under a system built on precision, those mistakes weren't tolerated. They were corrected or replaced. That's what made this shift so impactful. It wasn't about calling different plays. It was about enforcing a completely different standard. And that standard demanded trust. Trust between quarterback and receiver. Trust between players and coaches. Trust that every assignment would be executed exactly as designed. Because without that trust, the entire system falls apart. That's why the changes didn't stop at practice intensity or play design. They extended into personnel decisions, into who got reps, who earned opportunities, and who slowly started to see their role shrink. And suddenly, everything the team had been doing started to make sense. The new signings, the increased competition, the urgency to bring in players who already understood the system or could adapt quickly. It wasn't random. It was intentional. Because Todd Monken wasn't just trying to improve the offense. He was trying to stabilize it, build it around reliability, eliminate anything that could disrupt the rhythm being built around Shedeur Sanders. And once that process started, there was no going back. Because now, it wasn't about potential anymore. It was about fit. And for some players in that locker room, that realization hit hard. But what came next made the message even clearer. This wasn't just a shift in coaching philosophy. It was the beginning of a full rebuild. The shift in coaching didn't just change the playbook. It changed the entire identity of the wide receiver room. And once that reset began, there was no easing into it. It was immediate. Because now every receiver on the roster was being evaluated through a completely different lens. It wasn't just about talent anymore, not just about highlight plays or raw speed. The new standard was simple, but demanding: consistency, discipline, and trust. If you couldn't deliver all three, you were replaceable. That's what made the arrival of Tylan Wallace feel so significant. Not because he was expected to come in and dominate targets right away, but because of what he represented. He was reliable. The kind of player who runs routes the right way, every time. The kind of player who doesn't take plays off. The kind of player who contributes even when the ball isn't coming his way. And in a system now built around precision for Shedeur Sanders, that kind of player suddenly becomes incredibly valuable. Because when a quarterback is trying to establish rhythm, there's nothing more important than knowing exactly what your receivers are going to do. No surprises, no hesitation, just execution. And that's where the reset really started to show. Reps in practice became more competitive. Roles that once felt secure started to shift. Players who may have relied on reputation or past production were now being pushed to prove themselves all over again. Nothing was guaranteed. Every snap had to be earned. And the message behind it all was impossible to ignore. This room was being rebuilt, piece by piece, to support the quarterback, not the other way around. Which meant the focus was no longer on who had the biggest name. It was on who could deliver when it mattered. That's why players like Tylan Wallace fit so naturally into this new direction. He didn't need the spotlight. He didn't need a high volume of targets to make an impact. He just needed opportunities, and when he got them, he made them count. Whether it was stretching the field, contributing on special teams, or simply doing the small things right, he brought something the room needed: dependability. And that changes the dynamic fast. Because when one player starts setting that tone, it forces everyone else to match it. No more shortcuts. No more excuses. No more inconsistency being overlooked. Either you adapt or you fall behind. And as that realization spreads, the pressure builds. Because now, it's not just about competing against defenses. It's about competing for your place in a system that's clearly moving in a new direction. A direction that demands more. A direction that's built entirely around making Shedeur Sanders as effective as possible. And for some players, that's an opportunity. For others, it's a warning. Because if this reset has made one thing clear, it's this: no one in that wide receiver room is untouchable anymore. And the moves we've seen so far, they might just be the beginning. And just when it seemed like the reset was already shaking things up, the conversation took an even bigger turn. Because now, it's not just about who's already in the building. It's about who could be coming next. Almost overnight, speculation started heating up around the Cleveland Browns, targeting major upgrades at wide receiver. Not depth pieces, not developmental players. We're talking about potential game changers, names that instantly raise the ceiling of an entire offense. One of the biggest names being thrown around: Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, to be clear, nothing is confirmed, but reports suggest, and fans have been heavily speculating, that the Browns could explore ways to bring in a true number one option. Someone with elite route running, size, and the ability to dominate coverage. And if a move like that even becomes a possibility, everything changes. Because adding a player of that caliber doesn't just improve the offense, it reshapes the entire hierarchy of the receiver room. Targets shift, roles shrink, expectations skyrocket. And then there's another name quietly gaining traction: Brian Thomas Jr. Explosive, fast, a vertical threat who can stretch defenses and open up space underneath. Again, nothing official, but the buzz is real enough that people are starting to take it seriously. And when multiple high-end receivers start getting linked to your team at the same time, that's not random. That's intent. Because what it signals is this: the Browns aren't satisfied yet. Not even close. They're not just trying to fix small issues or patch gaps in the roster. They're aiming higher, looking for players who can immediately elevate the offense and take pressure off Shedeur Sanders. Because right now, everything points to one priority: giving their quarterback as many weapons as possible. Reliable weapons. Explosive weapons. Players who can separate, win one-on-one matchups, and make plays without hesitation. And when you combine that goal with the earlier moves, like bringing in Tylan Wallace, you start to see the full picture. This isn't just a rebuild. It's an upgrade. If you love real talk and fearless NFL breakdowns, hit subscribe and join Coach Speaks. A complete transformation of the receiver room into something faster, sharper, and far more dangerous. But here, where the pressure really starts to build. Because every rumor like this sends a message to the current roster. Loud and clear. It says you're being evaluated. It says your spot isn't guaranteed. And most importantly, it says, if we find someone better, we're not hesitating. That's what makes this moment so intense. Because even if these trades never happen, the fact that they're being discussed at all changes the mindset inside that locker room. Players start to feel it. They know what it means when the front office starts looking outward instead of trusting what's already inside. It creates urgency. It creates competition. And sometimes it creates tension. Because now, it's not just about proving yourself on the field. It's about proving you belong in the future of this team. A future that's clearly being built around Shedeur Sanders. And if these rumored moves turn into reality, some players won't just lose targets. They might lose their place entirely, which raises the stakes even higher heading into the next big decision, the draft. And just when the roster moves and trade rumors started building pressure, the biggest decision of all came into focus. The draft. Because for the Cleveland Browns, this isn't just another opportunity to add depth, it's a defining moment. Sitting with a top pick, every move they make carries serious weight. And this time, there's no room for mistakes. Not when the entire direction of the offense is being built around Shedeur Sanders. That's what makes this pick different. It's not about potential anymore. It's not about drafting someone who might develop into a star 2 or 3 years down the line. The expectation now is immediate impact. Whoever they bring in has to contribute from day one, no delays, no excuses. Because this offense doesn't have time to wait. There's already been enough inconsistency, enough missed opportunities, enough moments where things didn't click the way they should have. And if the goal is to elevate Shedeur to the next level, the pieces around him have to be ready now. That's why the pressure surrounding this pick is so intense. Every option comes with risk. You could go wide receiver, add another weapon, give Shedeur more firepower, and completely transform the passing game. But after the top-tier names, the drop-off becomes a real concern. Some prospects look explosive on tape, but come with questions, injuries, inconsistency, or limited experience against elite competition. You could go offensive line, protect your quarterback, give him more time, and stabilize the entire offense. But that doesn't directly solve the need for playmakers on the outside. Or you could go in a completely different direction, targeting the best overall talent available, regardless of position. Because at the end of the day, elite players change games no matter where they line up. And that's where the debate really begins. Some believe the Browns should trade down, collect more picks, build depth, and give themselves flexibility. On paper, it makes sense, but in reality, it's risky. Because moving down means passing on top-end talent. And right now, that might be the one thing they can't afford to do. This team doesn't need more solid players. It needs difference makers. Players who can step in immediately and raise the level of everyone around them, including Shedeur Sanders. That's why the front office has to get this right. Because if they miss, it doesn't just slow down the rebuild, it disrupts the entire momentum they've been building. But if they hit, if they land the right player, the kind who can contribute from day one, who fits the system, who understands the urgency, then everything changes. The offense becomes more dangerous. The pressure on Shedeur decreases. And the vision they've been building towards starts to come together in a real, tangible way. No more waiting. No more uncertainty. Just results. And that's exactly what this moment demands. Because with everything that's already happened, the signings, the rumors, the reset in the locker room, this draft pick isn't just another move. It's the move that could define what comes next. And when you step back and connect every move, every rumor, every decision, the bigger picture starts to come into focus. Because this isn't random. It's not a series of isolated choices. It's a plan. A very clear one. The Cleveland Browns are building something specific, and at the center of it all is Shedeur Sanders. Everything points back to him. The signings, about giving him reliable targets. the coaching shift under Todd Monken, about creating a system tailored to his strengths. The trade rumors, about surrounding him with elite-level weapons. Even the draft pressure. It all ties into making sure he has the support needed to succeed right now. This isn't a long-term experiment anymore. This is a commitment. And once a franchise makes that kind of commitment, everything else becomes secondary. That's why the tone inside the organization has shifted so dramatically. It's no longer about potential or patience. It's about performance, execution, results. Because when you build around a quarterback, especially one expected to lead the future of the franchise, there's no room for distractions, no tolerance for inconsistency, no space for players who can't align with the vision. And that's exactly what we're seeing unfold. The wide receiver room isn't just being upgraded, it's being filtered. Every player is being evaluated based on one simple question. Do you make life easier for Shedeur or harder? If the answer isn't clear, you're at risk. That's what makes this phase so intense. Because it's not always about who's the most talented. It's about who fits, who can execute under pressure, who can be trusted in critical moments. That's why players like Tylan Wallace are being brought in, not necessarily to be stars, but to set a standard, to raise the floor, to bring reliability into a system that now demands precision. And once that standard is set, everyone else has to rise to meet it, or get left behind. That's the reality of what's happening right now. Because this plan isn't slowing down. If anything, it's accelerating. More moves are coming. More decisions will be made. And every single one of them will push this team further toward that goal, building an offense that runs smoothly, efficiently, and completely in sync with its quarterback. An offense where timing is automatic, where trust is unquestioned, where every player understands their role and executes it without hesitation. That's the vision, and it's already starting to take shape. But here's the part that makes it even more compelling. Not everyone is guaranteed to be part of it. Because when a team commits this heavily to a direction, there's always a cutoff point. A moment where certain players no longer fit. And when that moment comes, the decisions get tough. The changes get real. And the roster starts to look very different. Which leads to the final question. Who's actually going to survive this transformation? And now it all comes down to one question. Who actually survives the shakeup? Because at this point, it's no longer speculation that the Cleveland Browns are changing. It's happening right in front of everyone. The roster is shifting. The expectations are rising, and the margin for error is almost gone. What used to be a comfortable position inside that locker room isn't comfortable anymore. Not with new faces arriving. Not with bigger names being linked in trade talks. Not with a system that demands precision on every single snap. And definitely not with everything being built around Shedeur Sanders. Because when a team makes that kind of commitment to a quarterback, it forces everyone else into a different role. Some players adapt and thrive in that environment. They sharpen their focus, clean up their execution, become exactly what the system needs. Others, they struggle to adjust. And that's where things get real. Take Jerry Jeudy, for example. He's one of the most talked about names in all of this, not because anything has been confirmed, but because of how much attention has been placed on the wide receiver room as a whole. When expectations rise and performance is under the spotlight, players like him naturally become part of the conversation. Fair or not, that's the reality. Because now, every route matters. Every drop matters. Every moment of hesitation gets noticed. And in a system where trust is everything, even small inconsistencies can raise big questions. But this isn't just about one player. It's about the entire group. Because the message from the front office and from the coaching staff is clear. Nobody is guaranteed anything. Not past production. Not reputation. not even talent on its own. If you don't fit the direction this team is heading, you can be replaced. And they've already shown they're willing to make those moves. That's what makes the addition of players like Tylan Wallace so important. It's not just about what he brings on the field, it's about what he represents. Reliability, effort, execution, the exact qualities this new system is built on. And if more players like that continue to come in, whether through trades, free agency, or the draft, then the competition inside that locker room is only going to get tougher. Faster, more unforgiving, which means the gap between who stays and who goes is going to become very clear very quickly. Because at the end of the day, this transformation isn't slowing down. It's just getting started. The offense is being rebuilt. The culture is being reset. And every move points to one goal, putting Shedeur Sanders in the best possible position to succeed. No distractions. No excuses. No delays. Just results. And as this all unfolds, one thing is certain. Some players will rise with it. Others will be left behind. And the next move the Browns make, that might be the one that finally reveals exactly who's who. 0.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.